We're here for our next episode of Ascot Asks with Jack Channon. First question for you, Jack, is probably quite an obvious one to the horse racing public, but how did you get into horse racing?
So obviously I took over from my dad, so I've been involved in racing since for as long as I can remember. Obviously Dad started training before I was born, and so growing up as a kid, obviously surrounded by all this and by racing, it was very hard to avoid. But going racing with Dad and going up the gallops, getting up early before school and all those different types of things, obviously was where I started, and I got the bug from there, and I haven't looked back, I suppose.
Is that sort of a cool memory of your childhood then, going up the gallops in the morning with your dad? Is that?
Yeah, no, very, very much so. Obviously Dad had a lot of very, very good horses in the sort of early 2000s and late 90s, and I can briefly remember sort of getting up at sort of 4 a.m. and falling asleep in the car, missing all the work, and then waking up again. But those good horses in the early 2000s, like I say, I remember watching the likes of Flashy Wings and Queen's Logic do all their fast work, and then getting in the car and going to school. So yeah, look, it's been something that I've adored forever, and I think you need to. It's a lifestyle. It's not a job almost. So no, yeah.
With your dad then, Mick, obviously being a very successful trainer, he also had a very successful career as a footballer. Is that something that you're aware of when you were growing up, his footballing career? Because obviously he retired before you were born. Is that, and like walking about town like stuff, people recognise him, and was that part of?
Not so much. I've always sort of known him as the racehorse trainer, and obviously I'm fully aware of what he achieved in football, but I never really saw him as a footballer or anything like that. You'd always get people remind you of what he did and how good he was, and which is obviously lovely. And obviously whenever we went, we're all big football fans, big Southampton fans, and whenever you go to Southampton, it's very apparent that he's remembered as a footballer down there, and I think it takes us about 40 minutes to get into the ground when he's with us. So I think we just got to the point where we end up leaving him behind and going and taking our seats. So look, it's not something that's ever been in the forefront of my mind. You obviously know about it, and it's obviously you're obviously really proud that a lot of people do remember him as a brilliant footballer. But yeah, no, it's racing's always been sort of what's been at the forefront of my mind and his mind.
Yeah. So you took over the licence from him a couple of years ago now. Obviously your dad was very, like you said, very successful. Did you very much want to put your stamp on it when you came in, or is it taking you time to sort of change over from what your dad was doing, or was it very much straight away, this is what I'm doing?
Look, very much so wanted to put our stamp on it. We wanted to be Jack Channon Racing, not Dad. However, there's so much that's intertwined that it's not as if I've come in and gone, right, I'm going to do it completely differently. The skeleton of what Dad has done for 30 years is still in place. We've just done a few little things, tweaked a few things here and there where we felt that we can make a difference and maybe improve, and so far so good. It seems to have worked. You got to remember, I'm starting off in a very different position to what Dad was. Dad was a footballer coming into racing, and probably wasn't as accepted as probably he would have liked. Racing can be very cliquey, and I think certainly in the sort of 80s and 90s it was very much that way, and Dad had to basically show to everyone that he was good enough for them to accept him, and what I mean by that is he had to have horses out racing. He had to have his 2-year-olds buzzing ready to rock and roll, and he had to win as much to basically swamp them with success to make them accept him. Whereas I'm in a very fortunate position where I already have a beautiful yard to train from. I have a large base of a clientele base. And it's more, I had to sort of, find my own identity as a trainer and sort of prove that we can not just get horses ready and run them, as Dad had to prove, but we can also do things with that bit better horse, take our time, get horses that can go on at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and even 9-year-olds.
If you had to pick one of these races to win, which would you pick? The Gold Cup at Ascot or the King George at Ascot?
Probably Probably the Gold Cup,
Yeah.
just for a bit of historic. You know, I think I'd love to win them both, obviously. But yeah, no, the Gold Cup's got that. You know, it's got that little bit more aura about it, I suppose. The King George is obviously fantastic, but you know that the Ascot Gold Cup just has that bit of aura about it, doesn't it?
If you had to pick one thing that makes you smile, what would it be?
My fiance.
Yeah,
Lana,
it's always a nice answer.
Yeah.
Keeps you in the good books.
Exactly.
So, when you aren't racing, what's it you do in your spare time?
A little bit of everything. You know, I'm big fan of playing sport. Like I say, I like my golf and I love my cricket. I love playing cricket. Unfortunately, with racing, it's very hard to be able to find time to do it. But you know, I always, you know, Alana's now got to the stage where if I ever get hyper stressed with what's going on at work, she'll just say, right, go off and do something because you're annoying me. But no, I did lots of little things. You know, like I say, I do a bit of gaming as well if I can't get out of sport, and just anything to really just basically take my mind off what's the horses and everything else. Something just to sort of reset. But the main thing would be playing cricket and golf probably.
What is your most irrational fear?
Failure.
Yeah? Just in general, life in general, or just particularly racing, or?
Just, yeah. Just, I it's what drives me. I do not want to fail.
Fair enough. If you could train any horse from history, and it can't be Franco, who would it be?
See the Stars.
See the Stars, yeah?
Best horse I've ever seen.
Yeah? Where did you, what was the race that you remember?
Any of them, but his performance in the Arc was phenomenal. You know, I think Frankel's probably the best we've seen, but See the Stars achieved more.
Yeah.
You hit that season, for me, obviously you go back to Brigadier and you know, some of those old greats, you know everything like that. Obviously I was too young to know, but what he put together at a multitude of trips on a multitude of ground in one season was truly phenomenal.
If you could switch lives with anyone for a day, who are you picking?
Probably Ronaldo.
It's not bad.
Wouldn't be bad to look like that for a day and have his money for a day, would it?
You can take 3 things to a desert island. What would you take?
Probably take a set of golf clubs, ball,
Yeah.
and a big container for water, rainwater.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
there you
not-
go. So one bit practical and then a bit something I can keep myself occupied
Yeah,
with.
practicing out of the bunkers. That's what.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If you could pick another trainer to go on holiday with, who would you pick?
Probably because one of my best mates, probably Charlie Johnson.
Yeah. Is he? What's that? Just purely best mate, or is he quite?
He's just a very good friend. So yeah.
What has been your proudest moment to date in the sport?
Probably one of, you know, Johann's wins. You know, it's pretty well documented how difficult the horse he is to train, but to get him back for sort of 3 big races in three separate seasons. You know, obviously winning the Golden Mile in my first year, and then coming back and winning a big handicap last year at Doncaster, and then going and winning the Leopardstown Group 3 a couple of weeks ago. You know, it's a long old year with him while you're getting him to that point, but that, you know, when you get him on the track and you can go and perform like that, I think, you know, I probably have bigger winners in my career, but you know, it takes a lot to keep bringing a horse like him back.
Do you like going over to Ireland for racing?
Yeah, anywhere. I'll go anywhere. You know, would love to have some horses good enough to go down to Australia and over to America for the Breeders' Cup and all those different types of things. Obviously, we had a winner in Bahrain this year. We've had a winner in France and Ireland this year. But yeah, if the race suits, I'll take them there.
Yeah. You talk about Australia there. You had, it's quite notable, your partnership, the Yards partnership with Hugh Bowman, who raced at the Shergar Cup a couple of weeks ago. What was it like, him coming over and racing one of your horses in the Shergar Cup?
Oh, it was great. Look, we're very lucky to get him. You know, it's obviously a bit of a lottery, but you know, my relationship goes back a long way with Hugh. Obviously, he came over and rode for Dad in 07 and 2011. I was quite young back then, but when I went to work for John O'Shea in Australia, I ended up living with him and his wife Christine for what, 7-8 months, and yeah, they were very good to me, because you know, I was a 19-year-old kid, and you can imagine I was probably not the best behaved, but no, it was brilliant. It's great to see him, great to see his family. I haven't seen him for probably 6 or 7 years, and no, he's a good friend, and really pleased to see him, and like I said, I'll hopefully get down to see him soon.
If you had a specialist subject on Mastermind, what would your specialist subject be?
Probably classic winners from 2000 to 2015, I was
Yeah.
obsessed. Yeah, I could name most of them. It's just growing up racing, anything from the 2000s racing. I was like it's like I'd swallowed the form book, and it's probably stood me in good stead. Obviously going into training, but yeah, no, there was if it happened in racing, I knew about it for sort of in those first sort of 15 years.
I'm going to test you now. First 5 years, 2000 to 2005, Derby winners.
Derby winners. So we'll go Galileo, Sindar, Criskin, North Light. North Light was Motivator 05.
There we go. Brilliant.
I think that's the
Motivator
right order.
was-
They're the five.
yeah.
I don't. But I think Galileo was was it 01? Sindar 2000.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, they flipped it.
If you weren't a trainer, what would you be?
I'd probably go into the bloodstock.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be something to do with horses. It's like I say, it's a lifestyle. It's not a job for me. But yeah, probably be a bloodstock agent. It'd be a lot less stress and a lot more money, I suppose.
What was your favourite part of working in horse racing then?
Look, I think it'd be twofold. The horses, obviously, you can't do it unless you Dad's number one rule is not to fall in love with them, but it's the hardest rule to obey in the world. But dealing with the horses and sort of seeing that progression to get into those points where you win races, and then obviously that there's just I've never been able to replicate that buzz of when you've been involved in prepping a horse and it wins. Whether you own it, bred it, or you rode it, or you trained it, or you just had a small part in the yard. That buzz when it wins is a phenomenal feeling. And if you haven't experienced it, I fully urge that you find some way of getting involved with a horse in some way, because it's something that you just can't replicate.
Yeah. Last question for you then. Very early in your career, but once it's all over, how would you like to be remembered?
I'd like to be remembered as a very good and a very successful trainer.
Yeah? Brilliant. Cheers.
No worries.